It's 1 hour to the dawn.
1 hour? Crazy.
Hello. Cool. How you doing? Thank you everyone for watching the last one. I really appreciate it. I do appreciate it. So today we're gonna do kind of the inverse of what I did the last time. I am taking from another ranked list off of my Letterboxd, but I'm gonna go in the reverse order. I'm not doing a ranking here, okay? You see the title. You already know what's happening, okay? You hear the water of that toilet going off. You know what's happening, okay? So what it is I just wanted to talk about how good of a fucking year for movies 2022 was. Like, seriously. 2020 and 2021. Well, actually, even before that, 2019 was probably, at least if it wasn't the best year for movies out of the 2010s, which it might not have been. It was certainly like, it felt like we were just going up, you know? The beginning of the 2010s, we were coming off of the late 2000s, so it was like Michael Bay, Avatar, Blue People, and The Last Airbender live action version kind of movies, you know, and like 2012 or 2012, and like 11, you know, movies about not necessarily disaster movies, but like end of the world movies, or movies where things are breaking, you know, things are blowing up, you know. Yeah, Michael Bay. Exactly, Michael Bay. But, you know, as it went on, oh, and of course the MCU and the DCEU, and, you know, this fucking Star Wars comeback and all this shit. You know, all these cinematic universes being spawned, and the industry kind of, you know, making products get to the top instead of genuine art. And, you know, because they're just pushing products, they can reproduce these products at just faster and faster rates as the years go on, and that's why there's now like 20 million fucking Marvel projects. And, you know, that was a little disparaging, even as someone who loves superheroes and is fine with Star Wars and all these things and liked Transformers as a kid. It was still pretty fucking tiring. But, you know, there was this little company, and there were others putting out good films, but I think A24, you know, helped in the 2010s to popularize a world of films that were not, you know, this same old shit. Even if they were familiar in some way. Not every single A24 film is a masterpiece, but they were doing their own thing. And again, there were other filmmakers putting out genuine films too, even though it's, you know, the decade was taken over by all these industries. Around 2014, I would say, would be the first year where, if you go and look back, I mean, I'll just go and Google and look right now. Well, let me see how many I can name off my head, because that was the first year that I remember being like, alright, that's some pretty good movies right there. And I was just getting into movies at the time, too. Like, it took another year, like, or so for me to really start watching movies consistently, or trying to, at least. And, going back, like, late 2015 through early 2016, going back to a lot of the 2014 movies, say like a Birdman, Birdman being the big one. Birdman and Whiplash being the two that just fucking, still to this day, blow my mind. Fan-fucking-tastic movies. Oh yes, got my milk here, so, I don't die of heat. If you're a milk hater or an unsubscribe, frick off and get out of here, okay? We don't want you. This is the milk gang. You hear me? Oh, look, I'm drinking milk. That's some tasty fucking milk. So, yeah, Birdman, Whiplash, I'm pretty sure Enemy came out that year. The Denis Villeneuve film, it's a great fucking movie. Who else put out a movie in 2014? I guess I do have to look now, because I am quite curious. Let's see. What were some movies in 2014? Well, you had... Interstellar's one that everyone loves. You had fucking... Right, one of the two, some of the biggest movies of that year were, the Michael Bay Ninja Turtles and the fucking Amazing Spider-Man 2, which are two movies that, just fucking hit me like a truck. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is fucking hilarious, though. Hilarious movie. Oh, God, the fucking Hobbit movies. Oh. Yeah, those movies that sort of kind of helped, as the Sardana cast said, the Hobbit movies were the first hint to a nostalgia bait decade as well. So that's nice. But there was, I gotta be honest, maybe there weren't as many in 2014 that I thought, or maybe Google just is not showing them to me. Oh, Nightcrawler. One of Jake Gyllenhaal's best performances, still to this day. Oh yeah, right, fucking Gone Girl. I hadn't seen it a second time, but I do remember it definitely really grabbing a hold of me, taking me for a ride. And Ex Machina, I like that movie. I don't quite like that film as much as another Alex Garland film, which we will mention in this video, as he did put out a film in 2022. And I guess It Follows was technically from 2014, Okay, so I think you get my point, though. Around there, some movies that were popular were not very industry based, so that was cool. And then 2015, I think it lessened slightly, but then 2016 you had a lot of good indie films. 2017 even more, 2018 even more, and then I think it petered back down a little bit again in 2019. I can look up some more. If anything, I'll just throw some posters on the screen so I don't divulge too much. So, yeah. With that said, I go for movies. No, I was really looking forward to 2020. And then a little thing happened. And the movies that were able to come out in 2020, despite the pandemic, there were some outliers. Especially films that they, just released anyway. But films that were made during the pandemic were really good, and we were still getting a lot of those in 2021, and those are also good. But obviously, the market was thin, the general market, not just the market of the MCU, all these things. It was very thin. But then 2022 comes back, and it just feels like everyone comes back. It didn't. It's a year. It only happens once. Everyone, I should say, came back. 2022 feels like the year where film came back, where everyone was like, okay, we're either in some way, whatever kind of filmmaker it is, even if it was a stinker too, I feel like everyone made it a point to make the biggest movie they could make, even if it wasn't their best movie. There was clearly an attempt to make these huge movies, and I'm going to mention a lot of those. I am refraining from doing that at the moment, but I will be mentioning a good bit of those. So with that, I will, at first, mention my favorites of 2020 and 2021. I haven't seen every film of each year, and there's also a lot of really good films from 2021 specifically that I've kind of slacked on. I still haven't seen like French Dispatch yet. A few pretty significant ones. So maybe that year deserves a list too, but I think I'll save a lot of films like that along with a couple that I missed in 2022, like After Sun. I'll save those for like a catch-up video of sorts. So with that, let's boogie. So yeah, I got my letterbox still, soda! No one's gonna, if you get those, you're a G. So yeah, I got my letterboxd up here. I'm gonna go through, yes, here it is. Here is my best of 2020. These are my favorites of the year. And as I was saying at first, I mean, I'm not really gonna go fully into 2021 and 2020 like I said, but also, when I get to 2022, I'm not gonna build up to my favorite. I am going to address my favorites of each year. I am going to, just spread the love kind of around of things I saw that I liked, and, that'll be that. So, yeah, 2020, I mean, again, kind of a sad year, The few films that were coming out, though, were very intimate, very, very nice. I mean, there were a few that were a bit bigger, although I did not see a film like Demon Slayer Mugen Train until the following year, because that's when it was released here. I will admit that some family friends of mine and some family as well conjoined wanted to watch that movie pronto, so we did watch a torrent, but I don't even consider that having watched the movie, because it looked like it was filmed through a red Solo cup that someone pissed in, and the fucking sub, like, everyone, it's a Japanese property, and I mean, most cultures, their names like directly mean something. It's not just like some forgotten message based on some forgotten meaning based on a faith, like my name. Like it's a fucking Hebrew name that just means like who is like God or something like that. But in Demon Slayer, its name's like oh wow, what you know their names, their name. Well, oh yeah, Nezuko. Nezuko's like beans or something. And so she was just called Beans the whole time, and that's how I watched that movie at first. So I would not recommend that, but seeing Demon Slayer in the theater was fantastic, and I am going to address all the Demon Slayer hate kind of just blowing off, the show that it is, because people like one anime, so they feel like they can't like more, I guess. I don't know. I'm gonna dive into the Demon Slayer's mid catchphrase, because that's all it really is, a catchphrase. Doesn't mean that you can't dislike it, but if we're gonna call something objectively mid, I mean, you're literally like wearing a fucking blindfold then. So, with that, that wasn't quite my favorite movie of 2020. It was definitely the one that excites me the most. It may be my favorite on a personal level, but I'm thinking of ending things. Although I do think it was also the best year of 2020, it does also get quite an emotional reaction for me. I didn't necessarily feel the need to watch it again, because I felt like I kind of got what it was hitting at the first time, and I watched it with Trey, friend of the channel. He's here all the time. Co-maker of the channel, so on and so forth. He will be here on one of these soon. I mean, it's a heavy film. It's a really beautifully acted film. It's a beautifully directed film. It's Charlie Kaufman, so it's gonna be some top tier shit. I still haven't seen Synecdoche, but I've seen his collaborations with Spike Jones, which would be Being John Malkovich, an adaptation, and those are both fucking amazing films too. Um, you know, Not counting Synecdoche. I'm thinking of Ending Things, though. Might be the best thing Kaufman has ever done. I have to see his stop motion film as well from 2015. Um, I would say that was probably my favorite movie of 2020, though. David Byrne put out a concert film that was directed by Spike Jones. Wait, saying Spike Lee collaborated with I can't. I already can't remember. If I was saying Spike Lee collaborated with Kaufman, I meant the other way around. Spike Jones, because I'm bringing up the two Spikes too close to one another. Spike Lee collaborated with David Byrne of the Talking Heads, and directed a new stage show of his, American Utopia, and I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was really, really great. The songs were amazing. I don't know if I'll play the comparing game between that and Stop Making Sense, the concert film. But it's good, and it's a very valid spiritual successor to that. And feels good, man. What a fucking surprise of a documentary based on the meme Pepe, and you sit with this, it does such an amazing job of taking you through the life of this character, how the internet took it and memed it, all the way to how the fucking alt-right pipeline will, take memes and jokes, Pepe being a big one, and then just like throwing a bunch of just blatant hate and racism and clearly xenophobic art and all this stuff, but it has Pepe's face on it, so they're like, oh, well, guys, we're just joking. It does a great job of showing how it went from just being this creation of a modest comic book creator to the various forms it took as an internet meme, the various memes that Pepe inspired, all the way to his death and to a sort of rebirth that he has now, where people love the man again. People love him. It made me cry. It was such a touching documentary too, because it has a lot of focus on artists and their relationship with art and what it can mean when that is stripped away from you, or at least when the art is completely bastardized by a group of people, at least for a while. It doesn't mean that you can't bring it back, essentially, return it to what it once was. I think Feels Good Man is great, and I will mention now Pretend That You Love Me, the Joel Haver film. It may still be my favorite film of his, although I will get into his newest film. Another really, really touching, sad film. But it's great. It's free on YouTube. Joel Haver, really, really amazing at what he does, and also serving as a driving force to convince people that it is actually not that hard to make a movie. You don't actually need $100 million to make a movie. You can just do it. That sounds obvious, but then, if the only ideas you have are these ambitious ideas, it's like, oh, well, fuck, what can I do with just me, myself, and I? But, maybe if you really kind of try and break away from all of that and sort of look around the garden that you have, so to speak, how small it may be, maybe you can actually make something incredibly intimate, or should I say something really lovely through the intimacy of just making a film by yourself. Um, and Pretend That You Love Me is not a film made completely by himself, although we will get to one of those. But it's a great film. So the rest of these, I will now just quickly mention The Father. It was brilliant, Anthony Hopkins. He does deserve that Oscar, but man, I mean, Chadwick very much deserved it too. It's funny how they did that at the Oscars. But I mean, yeah, I'm not necessarily upset that Anthony Hopkins won an Oscar. He is Anthony Hopkins after all. What's her face? What's her fucking face? Olivia Colman, she's fucking great in it too. And the other actress was great. And another fucking round on me of this fucking milk. Another round. Another round of Madge Mikkelsen. That was another good picture. Yes, it was. It was very good. I quite liked that one. He was a real good performer, but man can he dance, man can he dance. He's such a good dancer. Dance for me, Madsy, dance. Wolfwalkers is probably, yeah. I think that's the only other animated film I have on my 2020 list. Definitely the best Western animated film of that year, for sure. Really, really great. Lots of stakes for a film directed towards children, especially, even though you can enjoy it as an adult because it proves kind of early on that it has genuine life or death stakes. And I also just think it's a beautifully animated film. I have to see their other movies, like Song of the Sea. I'm a great film. Joe Haver's other film of 2020, Forget About Everything for a While, was a film just between two people that was very, very good. Also very touching. It's a bit shorter. That was actually my first Joe Haver film, and I loved it. I thought it was really great. I thought both the performances were great. And it was the most gay, not gay film I think I've seen in 2020. Horse Girl. People were, I don't know, kind of disappointed with Horse Girl. I can understand that in terms of the story itself is a story that's been done before. This girl's crazy, or is she? But I mean, from a acting, filmmaking, and musical perspective, I thought the film was fucking phenomenal. So yeah, it may be a little basic in that regard, even though I think it approaches that plot smart enough. I mean, as I remember, anyway. And yeah, I thought it was fun watching all the weird, quirky choices they made with the production. And just the general trippy nature of the film, how much the soundtrack would change up. And of course, Alison Brie, who helped write the film as well, it kind of just displayed her as such an absolute talent to me. So yeah, I mean, even if you come out of it not liking it, or maybe outside looking in doesn't look too interesting to you, I would still say give it a chance. It's pretty good. Black Bear, Aubrey Plaza. Another weird one. I liked this one. I think I felt a little bit closer to how others feel about Horse Girl to this one, although I did like it. I definitely did like it. Rainey's, right? Rainey? Yeah, Rainey. I promise I liked the film. Rainey's Black Bottom, the film that Chadwick Boseman lost an Oscar to. No, I mean it's Viola Davis just got her EGOT, EGOT, whatever that is when you win like an Oscar, a Grammy, a Golden Globe, all those, a BAFTA. And I mean, she's a fucking force of nature, so that makes sense. She's amazing in the film. Absolutely wonderful. I mean, all the acting is great. It is, to me, Chadwick Boseman's best performance. I actually find his acting in that very inspirational. Yeah, I mean, even though I didn't see Black Panther, but he surprisingly was my favorite part of Civil War, and I say surprisingly because at that time, Star Wars, Spider-Man was completely up in the air in terms of rights, and as a fan of the comic of Civil War, Spider-Man is essential to that story. So when they said that they were going to make that movie, but you know, Spider-Man was nowhere to be seen, it was so disappointing. But then, when you know, Spider-Man was in Civil War, and I went into it being like, oh fuck, Spider-Man, Spider-Man. But then I came out of it like, who the fuck was that Black Panther guy? That guy was fucking awesome. And then, you know, I took a look at 42. I want to watch the Jackie Brown film that he did. Yeah, I mean, what? Oh, what the hell else did that guy do, huh? What the hell else did that guy do? You know, we can bless up to Chadwick for a moment. I mean, he's the best part of like any of those fucking Marvel movies that he's in. Quite honestly, it's Draft Day. Hell yeah. Oh, another. Well, actually, we'll be getting to the other big one that he was in just a second here. But yeah, Marini, sorry. Yeah, really great film. I'm not the biggest fan of how it ends, but I think they stuck pretty closely to the script, and it's a play. Marini's Black Bottom is a play, and the ending of the play is a very play ending. But I thought it was great, though. I really did, and Chadwick again gives a performance of a lifetime. I mean, it's hard not to feel sad about what happened to him, you know. I think everyone was saddened by that, even if you never saw a movie with him in it. I don't know how, you know, you could hear about, you know, not in the sense of, oh, boo-hoo, you was an actor. Like, that's an easy way to, fucking reactionary way to, like, refute the entire existence of a man. But a person who has cancer, who, you know, essentially signs off any years he could, I guess, be given the treatment to push his body to the absolute physical limits, because you have to be cut for those Marvel films. I forget about Marvel films. It's the Bill Burr joke of fucking, what's his face? Ben Stiller was ripped from Meet the Fockers. Like, so, you know, he did make a sacrifice at the end of the day, Chadwick. So, yeah, with that, I will quickly get back to the others. I mean, he was in the main Spike Lee movie of that year, the Spike Lee narrative film of that year, the Five Bloods, which, yeah, I don't know how to feel about the film itself, but Chadwick was, again, another shining light in that film, quite literally. Pieces of a Woman I have on here, too, because I thought that was very well acted, and Mank. It's David Fincher, black and white, Mank. Oh my god, I'm such a fucking idiot. I cut that one so early. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. I am, though, however, taking a while to get through the films before I even get to fucking 2022, so I apologize, but I mean, hey, you're still here, ain't you? Although if you left right now, I guess that would be, the joke would be on me, wouldn't it? So 2021, this first set of films that I'm going to mention, this trilogy, it was technically a TV event, but I count it as a trilogy. I don't give a shit. Get Back, the Beatles recut of the Let It Be documentary that unearthed way more footage and completely destroyed the false narratives that were set up in that film. It is the dream being enacted of any artist or person. You know, this is a dream that people have about fucking anything. Of, oh, I wish I could be a fly on the wall for blank. And a lot of people who are Beatles fans say that about the second half of their career because in a lot of ways that's the less documented half. They weren't in the public eye as much. They were in the studio making a lot of music. And the environment of that late Beatles era was always rumored to be so hectic, and in some ways it was. And Let It Be in particular had this whole air around it that, oh, it was the thing that destroyed them! It destroyed the Beatles! And then Peter Jackson unearths all this footage, and it's like, no, actually, they had some built-up stuff between them, but they still loved each other. They were still friends. The real break was yet to come. As someone who knows a good amount of Beatles history, it was this fucking, like, most stereotypical looking con man, fucking like Alvin Klein or some shit that just like took all their funds essentially. Yeah, I mean that is still probably my favorite thing of the 2020s so far. We're not that deep in, but goddamn do I love it. I mean, holy hell! Like I said, that was a dream realized, to be a fly on the wall for this whole era of the, and not this whole era of the Beatles, but a particular pocket where there seemed to have been a lot of tension. The original Let It Be film definitely made it look that way. Yeah, there's like one song performance from the first Let It Be that I wish was in the new one, and like that's it. That's literally it. And that's not even like a flaw. Like that's just like oh, I wish there was that version of You Really Got a Hold on Me with George singing in the new one. But that's not like a problem with the movie. It already had so many things that it was showing people, as well as like hidden audio off of hidden mics that weren't even like used in the original film, that also bring a lot of clarity and really humanize them. And you know, yeah, I mean, John, listen, controversial figure, hit his lady, very much not cool, and there's no but for that. You know, I understand on any level. For people, you know, if you're a full-on separator of art versus artist, or if it's, you know, too personal for you, I understand both of those. At the end of the day, the Beatles' music is, I grew up on it. I grew up on Yellow Submarine. It's too engraved in me for not to at least love it. I was glad that John didn't come off like a fucking abusive freak in the thing. He seemed arguably the most genuine of them all. Just, again, it doesn't mean that hitting a woman is a-okay. It just means that I was able to sit in that room with them for 6 hours and see how they acted when they felt like they weren't being watched, which is kind of fucking weird, but in a way I think it was important, you know, as a fan of that music, because I mean John isn't the only Beatle, right? You know, I wanted to see how they all felt about one another, as well as the approaches that they each had at that time to writing music, and how they interacted with each other, how they felt about themselves at that time as a unit, as an individual. I think it's a really beautiful film, or set of films, whatever you want to call it. Maybe I'll do something on just that one day, because again, I'm already going off way too fucking much. But this is about the 2020s, gosh dang, I mean it's not really. It was meant to be it still is. It's just gonna be a long one, probably. Inside, Bo Burnham's Inside, incredible. I mean, I really loved it. I got to see it in the theater too. I got to see that in the theater, and that was great. That was really great. Amazing music, amazing music. You know, Bo Burnham never disappoints. I mean, yeah, I think I will get more into that later. Marcel the Shell, fantastic. Beautiful, beautiful movie. A lot of people would count it as a 2022 film because it was just in festivals in 2021. But if I see a year on Letterboxd, that is the year that it is. And there will be no more discussion about that in this house. Do you understand me? You fucking asshole. Yeah, I mean, Marcel the Shell was really fucking touching. It started out as, a series of YouTube shorts that got very, very popular. They're helmed by two people who are, I guess, in the biz in some way or another. But yeah, really good stuff. Really, really beautiful. Jujutsu Kaisen 0. Awesome movie. While I think season 1 of Jujutsu was a little bit more gripping from a plot perspective, I definitely think Demon Slayer had the better of the movies. I really do. I think Jujutsu's movie was a fun, very standard kind of just action, thriller, demon fighting thing. Whereas the pacing, the structure, and all this of Demon Slayer, even though there are some flaws with, like, how one character literally just shows up like a villain. They think they've beaten the main villain, and these characters have had no trouble in the Demon Slayer movie. And then, here's this villain that just shows up at the end to be the strong guy, right? But ultimately, there's still consequence in that movie, and because Jujutsu 0 is a prequel movie, it doesn't really feel that. It feels very inconsequential to me, ultimately. It's cool to watch these characters in an earlier time and to get some more context on a character that was only hinted at, and it's MAPPA, so the animation's amazing. But I don't think I'll be revisiting it as much as the Demon Slayer movie. Like, I will revisit the Jujutsu movie as much as I rewatch the show. But the Demon Slayer movie, I would just watch, I would just throw that shit on. Yeah, the emotional weight of the Demon Slayer movie, I felt was also way more potent. Again, even if there's sort of a cheap way it gets to its conclusion, I ultimately feel like it's a bit more bang for your buck, But Jujutsu is an amazing story. The film's amazing. Really, really good. Also glad I got to see that in theaters. So now we have the films by Ryusuke Yamaguchi. Hope I said that right. Both of his films, I just put them back to back here. Wheel of Fortune Fantasy and Drive My Car. Both really great. Drive My Car kind of reminds me a lot of Tar this year, which I will get into. And Wheel of Fortune Fantasy was just kind of a really surprisingly enchanting film for how scaled down it was, for how simple it felt. And Drive My Car, even more surprising how invested I was in it. Drive My Car centers around a incredibly enticing main character, in my opinion. And Wheel of Fortune Fantasy takes you around 3 different anthology stories, all of which I thought were really, like, not at all the typical kind of romantic love anthology type movie. It was very, very specific scenarios, and I really liked that. And it also, weirdly enough, had some very dire stakes and consequences at one random point, which added a extra weight to the film that was so unexpected, such a sudden blow to the gut. So yeah, loved those. Just saw After Yang recently. I really loved that movie. Um, and yeah, I mean, Colin Farrell's great. The whole cast was great. I feel like the premise of that film alone was just so beautiful. Um, a world where you can get these like perfectly made like robot, like they seem so human. And in a lot of ways, they very much are. I mean, they really are because they they build all these connections with people, and Yang in particular sort of excels at that. Yang, the robot, but at the very beginning of the movie, he stops working, and this family got Yang, a teenage boy model, to help their Chinese daughter sort of assimilate in a way or relate to her culture, and as someone who could sort of teach her about it a little more hands-on. And although she is grieving over this, we learn very, 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 very quickly through some great visual tells or just hearing the nicknames Colin Farrell used for Yang. We see that he is arguably dealing with this grief the most, or at least he is taking it incredibly hard. I thought it was a beautiful film. Listening to Kenny G was a fantastic documentary. It was, yeah, another one, that just, a lot of music films, which is great. I thought it was, it touched me. It really did. It's another one that strangely touched me and left me, sort of swelling up, because with Kenny G, it's just a great story of passion. You get a very objective look at Kenny as a person and an artist. He is interviewed as much as his critics are interviewed. And I mean, not necessarily like that matters, but the critics they got to interview, I mean, they get one guy that like fucking hates Kenny G, but even he isn't there in bad faith, The film is entirely good faith to Kenny G, to the big picture of his life and what he's done. And I thought that was great. And it's directed by someone named Penny Lane, so that's just friggin' epic. Judas, not Judas, Judas and the Black Messiah. Sad, fucked up, true story. Very good though, really, really great film, incredible acting. Daniel Kaluuya won the Oscar for that, right? I mean, he deserved it. I hope he did. He did deserve it. I lost my list here. Hold on. Come back to me, listy. I love you. Titan. It's a film about a woman who fucks a car and gets pregnant. I mean, you gotta see it. It is very French. It's very French. But it's great. It's a really great film. Dune, it's kind of low just because the second one hasn't come out yet. I want to see them together. I do like Dune, though. I love Denis Villeneuve's Dune. I gotta see it again. I mean, yeah, it's probably not my favorite film of his. I like Blade Runner more. But it's pretty damn good. It's pretty good. Yes, Inuo. This was an amazing film. Another one a lot of people would count for this year, but really, really fucking great. Anime film, anime rock and roll, but also old-timey Japanese style film. Fucking awesome. The musical performances were insane. And really glad I got to see that one in theaters. Tragedy of Macbeth, by, or just one of the Coens, right? Not both of them. Joel Coen, yes. it's Macbeth, it's Hamlet, it's Shakespeare, and they dedicated themselves fully to Shakespeare. So at times I'm sitting there, even someone who did a bit of Shakespeare in his time, and not to flex, but I am sitting there like, huh? But it's still good, and it looked fucking fantastic. It's one of the best looking films of the decade so far. I'm sorry if I look repulsive to the amount of sweat I'm gonna have on me sitting in this friggin' garage. The Card Counter, another film by Paul Schrader, the writer of Taxi Driver, The Last Temptation of Christ, Raging Bull, but also the director of First Reformed, Mishima, one of my favorites, and The Card Counter, which was another installment in his self-made series, The Loner in a Room, whatever fuck. It's fine. Probably the weaker one of those. And not just fine. It is really good. It has a strange kind of final act, though, and there are parts that come off very goofy when I feel like the tone was meant to be a little more serious, but ultimately I do. It's a strong recommend. Mad God, a film that is much more funny when you know what the director's like is sort of Phil Tippett, guy who worked on Star Wars, like the OG Star Wars films, and Jurassic Park. He's been doing effects for generations, and he put together this really fucking hellish, creepy, fucking awesome stop motion film. But then when you learn what he personally felt, it all kind of means it's a little silly. But the film itself is fucking awesome, though. It really is. Oh man. Yeah, maybe I'll make one about that someday. And then Batman: The Long Halloween animated films, mainly Part 2, I thought was a lot better. Really great. You have fucking what's his face, Jensen Ackles as Batman. That's fucking sick. The Suicide Squad was fun. James Gunn's film was a very fun film. Dax Flames, what is it? Becoming YouTube? Making YouTube. Becoming YouTube. I am becoming YouTube. Dax Flame, classic YouTuber, who also, it was a YouTuber who made After Yang as well, or at least a film analyst. But Dax Flame, I mean, he's a fucking OG. And Making YouTube is a nice little film. It was the very last film of 2021 as well, because he made it a goal to make a movie before the year ended, and he got right there, right on the line. And then a simple smash and bash gone wrong. It was Joel Haver's Oscar film from that year, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a silly ride if you need a good laugh. Okay, so now that we are legitimately a good 40 minutes into this shit, let's get to the main topic of the video. 2022, I already said, felt like a year where filmmakers were making a point to come back with, if it wasn't the biggest grand scale film that they had made up until that point, it was certainly a film that the filmmaker was clearly pouring their heart into. Again, with this feeling of just, all of our films are going back into the theaters, so we gotta throw it all at the wall. Who is that? Someone, what is that? Chainsaw? What the fuck was that? So yeah, I got this little film here. There are two films that I consider my favorite films of 2022. It would be this and Tar, but this is the first film that I ever pre-ordered the Blu-ray of ever. I saw it in theaters with Maurice, another friend and collaborator of the channel, and then I went and saw it again because I loved it, and I wish I got to see it a third time, but I'm sure I will someday, because this baby's definitely going back in the theaters. It may not be the best film ever made, but man, it's a very creative one. It beyond all else, it felt like a breath of fresh air when it comes to the movies. You know, this, Top Gun Maverick was this for a lot of people, and I can understand. But there's still a bit of, a bit too much of a American, like over-Americanized feel to it. Obviously, it's about the fucking military, but like, and it's less propaganda based than the first Top Gun, which is good. But even still, it's a sequel, and it's a sequel to an 80s movie. So it retains that feel a little bit. It is still, even if it's amazing nostalgia material, I wouldn't quite call it nostalgia bait, because nostalgia bait to me means that, like, that's it. That's the only thing that people are there for, No Way Home. But a movie like this, I mean, even if you can compare it to other movies, it still is the only movie that has done it this way. And it also felt fresh in the sense of, like, it felt relatable to my personal sense of humor, like, of my age range, of my generation. They are older than me, these filmmakers, the Daniels. I was pointing somewhere looking for their name. There it is, the Daniels. But you can tell they're guys who have used the internet, and it's also not like internet humor and like a cringe fucking, let's swipe that! Like those kinds of fucking videos. This was a lot of fun. It was heartfelt. It was unique. I mean, it deserves its nominations too. I thought this film was going to be forgotten. It seemed like the perfect film for the Oscars to forget. But what do you know? They didn't do too bad this year. They missed a few big ones, but they didn't do too bad. So, I mean, yeah. What is there to say about Everything Everywhere All at Once that hasn't already been said? Probably a lot, actually, as it is still fairly new, even though a lot of people love it. What can I say? I'm pulling through, as someone whose first film of Indiana Jones was the Temple of Doom. Now I want to get his name right. What is it? Oh God, where'd his name go? Oh, there he is. Wait, no. Yeah, there it is. Okay, Ke-Huy Quan. Ke-Huy Quan? I am fucking so sorry if I butcher that, because I have nothing but respect for that man. I mean, Michelle Yeoh is great too. I saw Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I saw that in the theaters. The same week I saw Inuo and some other films, and that further helped me appreciate her as well, especially. Her, not just as an actor, but as an action star. Really, really, really talented. The whole cast I loved. And yeah, I mean everyone. Oh yeah, I mean as a Temple of Doom lover, I was so excited to see Mr. K back at it again in his fullest form. I must say, he really pulled through with this one. Great film. I echo all the sentiments. It is fantastic. And Tar is in some ways kind of the inverse of this film, because it's even more, I don't want to say it's artsy-fartsy, because I think it validates itself. To a lot of people it's going to be very artsy-fartsy though, because the film starts with like a 7-minute, very well shot, but 7-minute interview sequence of the main character just being interviewed on a stage. Not like a montage. Just one interview with this character. There's a little clip before that, and then like a title or so, and then that's it. And then it's just an interview with this like real interviewer too, like in real life. So it kind of helps. It makes it feel even more real almost that Cate Blanchett is playing a real person in this film. At least it certainly feels that way, because God fucking damn it, was she so amazing. She was so good. She was so good in the movie. And I mean, the direction was fucking fantastic, even though it was literally just a 7-minute intro of a interview, just talking, and just like a interview as well. Like it wasn't like code, or well, it may actually be coded with some of the themes of the movie, but if it is, it's very subtle about it, because it literally just feels like you are watching a interview. And for some reason, I was more riveted at that fucking opening scene than I was with like most movies of the past few years. And from there, it turns into a really great film about power. And I loved it. I really don't want to say a lot about it, because people should just go watch it. I went into it blind, and I'm very happy it did. Again, it's not going to be a film for everyone. If it bores you, whatever. But if you could get on for the ride, I think you're going to feel very rewarded. The film is going to give you a lot to chew on. Watching this lead character and really trying to think, like, I mean, there's no narration here, but how unreliable is this person, you know? And it also did a great job of not feeling like a reactionary movie, even though it is about, it displays power through a woman, even though you would typically see that through a man. So it's easy to look at the other side and be like, oh, so women can maybe be sexually abusive too? Guess that means you can never believe a woman if she says she was assaulted. Like, it doesn't take that approach at all. It feels way more objective. And again, I mean, it's some of the, like, it was subtly directed, but at the same time, the choices were very potent. The occasional surreal moments of the film. I thought it was fantastic. I as much as I loved Michelle, and I mean, maybe she deserves it more on the premise that Blanchett has won a few Oscars at this point, but I mean, fuck, she pulled through in Tar. She really did. She pulled through, man. She pulled the fuck through. Let's see. Okay, I'll keep going. I'll keep going. All right. So this next one, and now from this point on, I'm gonna kind of go out of order in my little list here, and the list itself is not necessarily in a proper order as well. The ones I like more towards the top, but that's pretty much it. So I will mention Triangle of Sadness, which is a exciting film out of nowhere. I mean, you hear that name, and if you have no context for the film, which you should try to keep it that way, you're gonna be like, all right, well, I guess I gotta be ready for that. But no, it's a hilarious film. The title itself is a reference to a pretty funny line at the beginning of the movie. But the style of the film, I thought the direction was really great. I'm pretty sure that's one of the things that managed to get a nod for. I would not be disappointed at all if Triangle of Sadness won Best Director, because I just thought a lot of the choices of the cinematography, of the music, I thought they were so good. I love that the cast, apart from like Woody Harrelson, was fairly unknown. Which may not necessarily have fully been a choice on his part. I'm not sure, but I love the cast. And again, it's not just a funny film, a film that is a pretty leftist piece, I would say, on society and gender and other things. The rich, capitalism, these types of things. But it does it in a funny way, and again, an exciting way, out of nowhere. I mean, it's not quite exciting like, it's not Indiana Jones, but they're I guess it's fun, you know. It has a pretty intimate start, and then after the first act, the film evolves a few times in some really fun ways, and I loved it. And it recommended the film used a song. Is the band the song and EP is New Noise. I gotta make sure what the name of the band refused. The EP and song of New Noise. Thank you, Triangle of Sadness, for giving that to me. Fucking awesome. Yeah, really, 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 really great. It's also a bit higher because it's one of the films here, probably the 2022 film that I've seen the most recently. But I did love it. I was eating up every goddamn second, and also by the time you get to the end, there are some pretty fun hints or little things dropped in towards the beginning that you would not at all expect to lead to anything or be imagery of something. Like it's there as it is in the film. You're just watching the film, but when you go back to it after you've seen the ending and you see where these characters literally end up, it's cool to go back and look at the little things, you know, the little things. Okay, so these were some of the first films, or maybe, the first films I saw in a theater this year, but I was still catching up. It was 2022. I saw them in the same day. I saw them. It was actually quite a fun double feature, although it did not start so fun because the film I started with was The Whale, Darren Aronofsky's The Whale. The Renaissance are coming in real strong. They're coming in hot. I fucking hope he gets that Fraser, I'm sorry, clarified in an interview recently. I'm sure he clarified it when he was first getting famous, but everyone just fucking ignored him. It's Brendan Fraser. Fraser. The Renaissance. Look, I have some personal things happening in my life that at the moment don't seem as dark as they did, but when I went to see The Whale, things looked a lot darker, and I knew the film was already going to hit me like a train, but it hit me even harder. I mean, I was in the theater with two other guys, but like I was quiet, but like I couldn't give a fuck about like, are they gonna see me cry? Like I was a fucking wreck watching the movie. I really was. My only real quarrel with the film is that it feels a little bit too much like a standard A24 film from like a aesthetic standpoint. I thought the music was pretty good because it was just horrifying, but the cinematography and I don't know if it was the color grading or just the look of the house, it felt too familiar to A24, and not just that it felt like it just the body of A24. It didn't even feel like a specific filmmaker. So seeing that come from, not just anybody, but from Darren Aronofsky, someone who in a lot of his films has a really incredible style, really sharp style, a style that is developed in a lot of different ways. And maybe this is just its own step, as Darren was watching a lot of A24 films and said, I'd like to make something that looks like that, and that's fine. For me, that I would have liked to maybe see something a little bit more original in that regard, but I think ultimately this film, you get what you are going there for. Everyone is going there for the wait, essentially. Everyone is there for the power that they know the story will hold, and it has it delivers. And so immediately after I saw The Whale, I went and I saw Babylon, a film that is already underrated. I mean, not really. It's pretty well rated on. It's pretty well rated on Letterboxd. I know it was like a box office bomb or whatever, but that doesn't really matter. I thought this film was a lot of fun. Something like Boogie Nights is a little better because it's a little more original with its approach, even though I feel like Boogie Nights is highly comparable to Goodfellas. That said, I don't think it's by a wide margin. I think Babylon is just today's Boogie Nights. Like, to me, it was one of the best shot films of the year. It has easily, probably, I think so, the best score of the year. Some really, really fun performances. Honestly, liked Brad Pitt's performance the best of his career, quite arguably. I thought he was great. I thought the way his plot went was great. The big thing that everyone misunderstands about this film is they say, they look at it, or they go into it even, expecting a love letter to Hollywood, and then they come out of it like, well, that wasn't a love letter at all. Someone, there's a review that's been quoted now, is this a love letter to Hollywood or a suicide note? But I think you're missing it if you think it's a love letter to Hollywood. I don't see how it cannot be a clearer fuck you to Hollywood. It is a love letter to movie magic. The moments in movies where all the calamity, all the sickness, all the real pain that can go into making a film. But then right when that shot is right when the sun just kind of gleams your way right over the trees or the mountain in the distance, and then all of a sudden a butterfly or a bird happens to fly in frame, or in case of Babylon, on the hair or the shoulder of Brad Pitt. It's a love letter to these moments, to the impact that feeling that film gives to people has had and has sustained throughout the generations, while pointing at the underbelly of Hollywood, drawing comparisons to today, and a little bit, not being too bonky over the head with the social issues of the time, but they are there. It doesn't it doesn't shy away from anything. It's not necessarily the most hard to swallow film. I think for the most part it is a really fun film. It for some reason starts with a big elephant dong scene, not dog, shit dong, not like a dong. There's a seed of an elephant shitting on some guy, and that, for a lot of people, they saw that and they were like, oh, so that's the movie, which it's not. I mean, it's a weird opening scene. I think that alone is kind of a perfect thing of this isn't meant to be classy, It's sort of him kind of, Damien Chazelle, sort of giving middle fingers to the people who thought it'd be a good idea to write him a fucking blank check for the movie in the first place. Obviously he was going to take it as big, as wild as he could go. And you can argue that maybe it should have gone farther, or that maybe it should have been shorter. But I don't know, for a 3-hour, 9-minute movie, it went by like a fucking breeze, and that was after watching another movie that was nearly 2 hours, back to back, in theaters. I thought it was short. I didn't literally think it was shorter than the Batman, but it felt shorter than the Batman, which is 2 hours and 50 minutes. That felt like 3 hours and 10 minutes. That felt like it had an extra 20 minutes on it out of thin air. But Babylon, even though there are a few seats that, yeah, alright, we've seen the scene where the crazy girl from the country or whatever is at the party with the rich people who are smirking at her. This plebeian in our presence. And then, she makes a mess. It's fuck you, rich people. But I thought it was fun, and again, that's not the whole movie, you know. And you know, again, maybe it's not the deepest film ever, but it's a hell of a ride. I really, as a cinematic experience, it was without a doubt one of the most enriching I've seen in the theater. Like, period. Period. With a T, okay? With the T! So, now I gotta look at my friggin' list again. I can go into any order, really, but I wanna look at the list. Oh yeah, okay. So we got some internet pieces now. So I brought both these guys up before. Two people who either are still living on YouTube or came from YouTube. And both of these projects are also available on YouTube. It would be the Inside Outtake. So the outtakes of Bo Burnham's 2021 film. The Inside, which you may be saying, well, why is a series of outtake, like you put a blooper reel in your best of the year list? But no, it's actually, I understand why it's called the outtakes, because there are outtakes in there, but it feels more like, I don't know if I want to say the real Inside, but it kind of is. It is the actual inside process of Bo Burnham's Inside, and there are plenty of unique songs and sequences to the Inside outtakes. It really feels more like a Inside Part 2, and I might like it more than the first one because it's even more genuine. He's not kind of painting himself as this kooky version of himself. It's yeah, you are just actually watching the guy put this whole big project, movie, special album together alone, and it's cool. I loved it, and then I want to make sure I get the title for this one right. Joel Haver's film of 2022, We Have to Leave Here Together. I think as a whole, Pretend That You Love Me is my favorite film of his, but the ending of We Have to Leave This Place Together fucking blew right through me. It was one of the best endings of any film of the year, and this is just a movie by a guy who made this movie alone. There are two characters in the movie, but they're both played by him. And that's it. It's a movie. It's a movie about a couple too, but it's just played by one guy, and it's not a big costume. It's just him and then himself in a wig, and that's it. And the ending of the film is fucking heartbreaking. It really is. I thought it was so incredible. Yes, second favorite Haver. Second favorite Haver. I decided it right now. I decided. I thought it was brilliant. I really did. Go check it out. Go check it out. It's one that I can't say too much about because it is a fairly simple kind of drama between the two figures of a relationship, and it really is kind of all building to this ending, and I don't want to say anything. I don't want to say anything. It's not like it's a blow your mind twist. It's just a moment that Joel Haver saw an opportunity to give you a gut punch, and he took it, and he made sure to put on some fucking what do they call those things? Grills for your hands, whatever the fuck. A brace. He put on like a fucking gold brace as well, like just got you in the jaw first, and and then he gets you in the gut. Great. I thought it was great. Yeah. So this was probably the biggest, not the biggest, but it was a surprise. I was looking forward to it, but I didn't expect to love it. And I do love this film. If you make a multimedia project a film that is also an album, like Inside. I'm gonna love it. I'm probably just gonna love it. So Kid Cudi put out, someone has a great letterboxed little quote, one of the most popular reviews. You'll instantly see it if you look at the film on Letterboxd. Like, I didn't have a Kid Cudi, or no, wait, I'm blending too. I guess it was just I didn't have a Spider-Verse styled Kid Cudi rom-com on my bingo list for this year, and then someone else was like, Kid Cudi got really high and did a double feature of When Harry Met Sally and Into the Spider-Verse one night. It was like, huh, that's gonna be a banger. And it was. Intergalactic is a really it feels like a film that exists from a lost time. Like, it came out somewhere between the years 1990 blank to 2000X, you know? Like, it has the feeling of the one thing that's kind of in between those two eras of the very, very late 80s when Harry Met Sally, and the 2010s, the technical achievement that is Spider-Verse and its animation. And it meets in the middle with the 2000 stoner comedy era of film. And then what do you know? You have one of the most fun, I don't know, if like lighthearted, like it is in a way, like it's not like a children's movie or anything, but like I watch it and I just feel like I'm in a breeze, you know? I have been getting more and more into Kid Cudi. Intergalactic, if you just listen to it as an album alone, would maybe be a little underwhelming, especially since that was recorded like earlier in his career. So his production, like he released a fully new album this year alongside Intergalactic. And you know, the production may not necessarily compare that well to the other one, but when you are watching, when you have these projects conjoined, the film and the album, I think you have something incredibly special. Some of my favorite songs from the year on there. As someone who loved the Miles Morales Spider-Man game, I felt like, you know, what they did to his music, like they should have just given Miles Morales a score instead of being like, well, let's give him a score and a trap beat, because he's what they say in the IGN video, he's got the swagger of a silly black teen, whatever it was. You know, kind of taking that, like, clearly fucking, you know, I am white, appealing to the minorities feeling out of it. You had some Sanctuary with songs like On Your Own by Jaden Smith and Kid Cudi. And Kid Cudi's chorus on that song especially. Because I come back and forth with Jaden personally. No hate, you know, on and off the line. Not even off, just riding the line, you know. That's my favorite song, maybe still, that both of them have been a part of. Although I love the feeling. Like literally in the chorus, Kid Cudi of that song is saying, "In this life, arms open wide," and that's how it feels taking in any of his art. It really does, especially Intergalactic. I feel like I am living in that Spider-Verse version of New York City, and I'm just standing in the middle of the street, like, no cars are coming to hit me. I'm just standing there taking in the breeze, like, oh man, what a nice day. You know, those clear, quiet days. And then, oh, what's that? Oh, you smelled the ganja? Because, yeah, it's a stoner comedy. But it's not like boom over your head with that. It balances the tones of like of that romantic, the romance and the comedy, I guess, pretty well. Yeah, it didn't feel like painful. You know, the romance felt genuine, didn't feel overly smooshy. And again, some of my favorite songs of the year, with On Your Own, New Mode. Oh my god, I love that song. And oh god, what's the other one? Do what I want. Oh, wait, I already said do what I want. Frick. On my that are on my own. Oh wait. No, I didn't say it. I confused the titles. I'm sorry. On Your Own is the Miles Morales song. Living My Truth, New Mode, and Do What I Want. Those are some of my favorite songs of the year. Favorite songs in the project as well, because of the songs themselves and the scenes. Just great. Really, really great. Really great. Oh shit. The camera's about to die. So yeah, Intergalactic. A favorite of the year. If I was ranking these, my personal connection with this one would make it pretty high. But this is not a ranking. Do you understand? I recommend it to anyone because I think it's very sweet. It's a great date movie. It's a great bro movie. It's a great movie to watch alone. It's a great movie to throw on at a party. It's a movie that I think could cheer you up. It's a movie that has some pretty nice emotional investment, And I love it. I love it so much. And now I'll bring up another animated film, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which I thought was amazing. It's one of my favorite stop motion films I've seen in not in forever, but it's watching that movie kind of like burnt a flame in me in a similar way to when I first saw Coraline when I was like 9. That is a favorite of mine. I love that film. They strike me in different ways, but they're also, it's mainly the maturity that both films have. Coraline is one of the scariest films directed at children ever made, and Pinocchio, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, it's probably the best Pinocchio adaptation. I did watch a couple others when hyping myself up for this new one, and I know the story pretty well. I know the original story. I felt like it took the episodic nature and used it very well and made it feel extremely contingent. That's a problem that a lot of other Pinocchio adaptations have, is that they feel too loose. But things actually flowed really well here. They flowed together, and the parts that you wanted to see that are iconic, like the whale, felt, perfect, just perfect. And it hit me like a train emotionally. It was a incredibly based anti-fascist film. All the comparisons, like with parenting, sort of approaching parenting from this like fascist mindset of obey and that's it, and then comparing that to just the society of Italy at that time, and Guillermo's own personal sort of interpretation of the film is so beautiful. The idea that this version of Pinocchio has nothing to do with Pinocchio changing, because he's already such a great kid. He's already such a light to so many people that he doesn't need to change. He is perfect the way he is. It's everyone else that he's around. Not everyone else is a problem. It's more like that when this kid comes into their lives, he teaches them something, directly or indirectly, and the way everyone grows, and I mean the life or death aspect of the movie as a whole, the fact that death was such a conversation in the film to begin with, was so good. It was so fucking good. I don't know if it was my favorite animated film of the year, but goddamn, it's close. Especially like from a animation standpoint, it probably is. The music, not like the compositions itself, but like the auto tune, because it is like a soft musical. It's not in your face about it, but there are some songs, and there's a good bit of auto tune. That's a little weird, especially because Guillermo made it a point to have all the instruments pretty much wooden. You know, there's this very authentic feel. So then to hear ooh, ooh, ooh yeah is like, all right. I mean, it's not quite that level, but you notice it. But that's my only flaw. I mean, it's a movie that gives you SpongeBob-Alini, Tom Kenny-Lini, Tom Kenny as Mussolini. That's hilarious and something I never knew I needed, but I did. And so I guess now, even though I don't know where it would be, I don't even know if I added, or no, I did. I think I'll just go through the animated films I have on this list right now, bring up my favorites, because I got one of the tickets for them right here. That would be Puss in Boots. Saw this very recently, and I loved it. I felt like it lived up to the hype. It is, I won't say easily, because I do have to give Shrek 2 its proper chance. Again, I don't hate it. I just think it's funny. It's still funny and it's still great. That is just a hint towards how schmaltzy Shrek was gonna get. And you know, Shrek 3 in particular is kind of like Shrek the series becoming what it was making fun of. It's just like a bad, cynical, like high school comedy thing, and obviously that's what it's trying to parody, like the high school comedy angle, but Shrek 3 just feels really cynical and mean-spirited, whereas the first Shrek is incredibly enchanting. I think 2 is still enchanting, it gets a little too schmaltzy. Shrek is a very, like, genuinely kind of great film from a romantic standpoint. Great film from all standpoints, really. It's paced fucking perfectly. It just glides by. It's too good for what it is, and that's exactly what Puss in Boots 2 is. Another film that we are indebted to Spider-Verse for, similarly to Intergalactic. Puss in Boots also, you know, uses that Excalibur style of animation. It has to do with lower frame rates and the shell shading, but also just the hyper color. It was awesome. You know, everyone. It's another animated film too that is talking about death a lot. I think the action adventure is more of the focus in Puss in Boots, but death is literally like a main facet of the movie. It does try to be a bit more balanced. And it has characters like John Mulaney's villain in there to kind of bring it back down for the kids a little bit, you know, whereas Pinocchio just kind of is like, it has Pinocchio at the center and it has these songs, but then other than that, you're literally just in like fascist Italy, like it's just fucking horrible. In a good way, like it is a very sad movie. But Puss in Boots was really fun fucking ride. Really, really cool. Really fun. I loved it. I give this one an epic out of 10. And I mean, you know, this is another one everyone's talking about it, so I don't really know what to add individually, other than I hope if they make a fucking Shrek 5, I don't know what that even looks like, especially after this, because the first Puss in Boots is in line with like Shrek 3 type of shit. Shrek 4 is alright. I haven't seen it since it like came out, but you know, Puss in Boots, the first one, is like the most generic animated children's film ever made, and it's fairly boring too. But I'm so glad that they really tried to make something bigger again, making something so good, even though you wouldn't think it should be. You know, a story about a cat with a sword. He's a cat with a hat and a sword, and there's another cat with a sword, and they want to get a wish. You know, and it's an action adventure. Like it's a movie that could just be fine, but they took it farther, and that I respect greatly. And the other animated film of the year that because there wasn't like a big anime release this year in terms of films over in Japan that I could think of at least. One that came my way. My anime film for the year was the anime styled, but Western Ninja Turtles movie, Rise of the Ninja Turtles. Was again much better than it should have been. The show Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out in 2018, and I was watching it alongside Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and both of them, like I would watch an episode of Cyberpunk Edge Runners, which is from this year or 2022, and also one of the best things to have come out that year, especially in terms of anime. Quick little review for that. I guess I loved that too. It was another thing where, based on what I know of Cyberpunk, the anime just took that material and elevated it and was way better than I would have ever expected and way more heartbreaking than I ever would have thought. But as I was watching that, I was watching The Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at the same time. And the show, too, not even the new movie, the show from a few years back. And, like, in terms of, like, color, the amount of color, because Cyberpunk Edge Runners is one of the prettiest things I've ever seen in terms of animation. I was sitting there with Rise of the Ninja Turtles and was like, why is this on par? And Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is even better because... the movie, because the show is very much more aimed towards kids, which is fine. It just, from what I've heard, it's a lot more similar to the original comics of the Ninja Turtles. I wouldn't really know about that, but it focuses more on the goofs and the gaffs. It's not really a edgy action interpretation version of the Turtles, like the one that I grew up on in '03, when that one started. But, Rise from a stylistic point is easily the best Turtles thing ever, and Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is probably just the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles thing ever. The stakes were high, similar to films like Wolfwalkers that I mentioned, or even Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. There were actual life and death stakes that, set the film apart from most movies that market themselves to adults, most movies with PG-13 ratings, or even sometimes movies with R ratings, like a Bullet Train, for example, feel weightless compared to these movies that are made for children. So I really respected it for that. And again, it's one of the most colorful films you'll see all year. I am sad that we probably won't get anything else out of that universe, especially more action-leaning projects, because it's easily the strongest. Not just Ninja Turtles content, but I can't even think of another action cartoon for kids these days. I grew up in the peak era of that, but now we've all grown older, and these markets understand that they got to release a slightly edgier anime to the Western world. Not that there aren't young kids who are liking that stuff, but in the 2010s, you saw anything that was literally not saying this is all the things were cool, they just took them and ripped them apart. I mean, literally, if there was something that was predicated on being cool or taking itself seriously, the 2010s had to come in and be being cool? That sucks. Why would you want your characters to be cool? They have to be self-referential and silly and make jokes about how actually the original version of the property that you loved is bad and you're dumb for liking it. Teen Titans Go being a big one for that. But really just a general move from being able to watch anything with a main character that was likely kind of cool to going to the 2010s where every male lead in an action film was a actual 2 IQ fucking himbo, and it was wrecking me Uh, I guess I have a glimpse of what like women in the 40s dealt with when they went to the movies and were like, man, I would love if I could see a movie where a woman wasn't just like a piece of meat. That's kind of how I felt during the himbo era. Because women were kind of getting the like representation they deserved, but also not really, because every female lead was just like a boring 80s action star, like just virtuous but in such a monotoned, emotionless way. Like there's no charm to any of these characters, and they never have to face any emotions. It's like, correct me if I'm wrong, but in life, are women not the ones who are usually more in tune with their emotions? And yet, the most popular women characters, like fucking, what's her face, Scarlet Witch, or not Scarlet Witch, she starts emoting once you get to WandaVision, but before that, not really. The other one, Black Widow, and, a little bit for Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, the Atomic Blonde, things that aren't even necessarily bad. It's just like, you don't have to sacrifice coolness to be funny, and you don't have to sacrifice humor to still be cool. And I feel like Rise of the Ninja Turtles expertly fulfills that in a way. For me personally. Okay, so yeah, those were my animated films of the year. I guess I'll kind of go back, continue going in order, because I started jumping around there. So the Banshees of Inisherin, I saw this at the very end of 2022. I thought the acting was phenomenal. I thought it was a film that was, it's fairly simple, but it was emotionally gripping, and it was a little bizarre. It's a film that I don't know. It's not a film that I would at all compare to Midsummer in like subject matter, but it was giving me this similar feeling as it went on of like, man, like where'd this come from? Like, it's not even the weirdest thing in the world. It's just a specific look at this kind of story that I'm like, wow, I'm really looking inside of this person's brain right now, aren't I? And, I think the screenplay, like the actual writing, the way it incorporates the actual civil war that was happening at that time with this friendship breakup is, a really neat little thing to do there. It kind of feels play-like, even though you're very cinematically sort of flying around the island of Inisherin. But it's just kind of focused on a pretty tight cast of just a few people, and they are all giving really solid performances. Brendan Gleeson is probably my favorite performance of his. I went. This was actually my first Martin McDowell film, so I went and had watched all of them right after, including his short film Six Shooter, and it's probably my favorite. Banshees is, I think, his best work, especially from a visual standpoint. But in Bruges is great. In Bruges is very good. And I think this one that would also be, well, I don't know. The ending will probably have me going back and forth of if it's like one of the year that I just love, or if it is like a favorite of the year. It would always be in my favorites of 2022. Let me say that. Just how high it'll kind of shift a little bit, maybe. I need to re-experience that ending. I need to re-experience it as a full film too. But I like the ending. It just ends in a strange spot, but maybe it's not that strange. Maybe not. So I thought that movie was great. and now they kind of go the complete opposite tone. But these movies have similar covers, so I like to sit them next to each other on my list. I don't know if I want to show you. You'll probably go out of whack, out of focus, as if I probably haven't already. Like, I don't even know if you can see me right now. But The Northman was, a pretty epic movie, I will say. I have seen this one twice now. I saw it in the theaters. I had to see that shit in the theaters, and I loved it. It did not disappoint. A lot of this is like the one that kind of sticks in my head is like filmmakers coming back in 2022 to deliver like the most grand scale thing that they had done to that point. For Eggers, that is certainly true, even though The Lighthouse in some ways may be a more ambitious project. The Northman is certainly more grand scale, a bit more Hollywood. But yeah, I mean, Everything Everywhere it's a pretty grand scale movie, even though Tar is intimate. It is approached with this very wide open feeling, and it's also a very long movie. There's a lot that you got to dive into. Triangle of Sadness is a bit of a roller coaster. It takes you on a ride. The Whale is small scale, but the emotion at hand is quite large. If someone didn't make the biggest, most grand scale movie, they just tried to give you the biggest gut punch they could, like Joel Haver. Intergalactic isn't necessarily grand scale, but it is still highly ambitious. And then, I mean, Babylon is fucking a huge movie. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio has a lot of scale. Banshees kind of sits in a nice, sweet spot where you are seeing the scope of this island, the scope of their sort of debacle and who it reaches, as well as the scope of the war around them. And then you have the Northman, and along with others that I will be naming, of course, but I just wanted to reincorporate that theme in case if it got lost, because I do truly believe that 2022 was a year that was big for film and a year of big films. Rise of the Ninja Turtles, Puss in Boots as well, both very grand scale action films, like really going nuts to butts with literally the scale of it, the things they're fighting, the way they fight, the level of animation that you're seeing. It's all there. And The Northman, as I said, I've seen it twice now. I actually got to... I watched my father watch it the second time, which was fun. Although it is a fairly simple kind of anti-revenge story, it doesn't necessarily approach that in the most revolutionary way from a plot point. I do think everything else is like phenomenal. I think the acting is great, the production design in general, Eggers is perfect with really encapsulating an era of time and a mythology, and just fucking waterboarding you with it. I really felt, transcended into this place, whatever, It had that great little, it wasn't all over-present, but a supernatural element kind of hazed in the frame of this, Norse epic, essentially. This will definitely be the episode where I say epic the most. Or not, let's see. Let's see if we can break that record someday. When I talk about the Shadow the Hedgehog movie. Please don't let that happen. So, The Northman. I mean, yeah, is it my favorite Eggers film? Probably not, but I love and respect the hell out of it and all the people involved, and I definitely don't blame him, Eggers, for not really wanting to make another movie like that again. If he just continues with small-scale historical supernatural wonky pieces, that is more than fine with me. I am perfectly happy with that. And so I guess I'll take it to Jordan Peele's film of 2022, Nope, which was another film that was pretty well coded in reality with its sci-fi haze. Obviously, that is the focus. It is, after all, a sci-fi sort of thriller in a way. Dramatic thriller more so, as it takes a bit of time for those things to get rolling. It's marketed as a horror film, but I definitely wouldn't call it one. It has some moments of horror that are very, very effective. This film, though, when I first saw it, it really, like, I kind of just saw it as like Peele's take on like a Spielberg film, like the darker version of like a what's it called, third kind. It was definitely him trying to channel those vibes of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and then just doing like the edgier version. But it wasn't until I listened, to a Sardonicast, really just hearing other voices talk about it, because it wasn't just them as well. All the very valid, with reasonable cause, especially, that you can very directly point to in the film, all the various things it's commenting on. Of course, there's just general topics of race. There's how black people are treated, period. There's how black people are treated in the business of film. There's how black people are treated, how fucking animals are treated in, oh boy, that one's gonna look bad. How the what look? I'm sorry, how the what look? I was already thinking in my head, like, oh no, I called Nope the darker version of third kind. And I like, if there's any reasonable cause to see some sort of joke from like 5 miles away, I have to acknowledge it. I'm sorry, but yeah, I mean it's tackling how people are treated in the business, how animals are treated in the business, again, specifically how black people are treated in the business, and then if you want to get more specific with the animals, how horses are treated in the film business, as well as just film as a medium itself, and exploitation. I guess that was the other thing I was trying to remember, with how black people are treated, how black people are exploited in the industry, and then how animals are exploited in the industry. And there is even more, but you gotta just watch it and experience it. I mean, it's a fun film. It's a film that doesn't even seem like it has all of that going on, because it is kind of just pretty zeroed in on its sci-fi focus. But when you look back on it, when you look back at a lot of the imagery, or maybe certain scenes that feel very self-contained in the moment, it's like, oh no, this film is saying a hell of a lot. So even though Get Out, I think, has a bit more uniqueness to it, Nope might be his best movie, because again, it has all these fucking layers out of nowhere that really, now, like, as soon as I look back on the film, it's like it can't leave my mind once I get started thinking about it. So maybe the movie itself, like, there were others that excited me more, but in terms of a long-lasting experience, it's going to be, one of the ones that holds tough for the longest, no doubt. No doubt. Ooh, man. I mean, I got a lot of these. Maybe I'll actually do those last, because my list is filled with horror. People were putting out the good horror that year, I gotta say. Wow, such good horror. So let me mention the one thing that I guess the Oscars did really snub this year, which was Decision to Leave, Park Chan-wook's new film, the filmmaker of the Vengeance trilogy. Something that I'll absolutely be talking about here, especially because I have some hot takes it is a beloved trilogy of mine, but I do have some hot takes about it. I mean, it's also kind of it's sort of the films that really brought my love of film back a few years ago, like when the pandemic, at least in the midst of it, toward the end of 2020, I just had not been watching as much movies. I was more focused on the music side of things. Movies was more what I was doing in high school. But the Avengers trilogy instantly kind of threw me back in and completing. I didn't complete Park Chan-wook's which is kind of long, but I've seen most of his films, and then Bong Joon-ho along with him, as they are associated with one another, and two of Korea's best, but also just general Korean cinema. Watching films like Burning and I Saw the Devil, amazing fucking films. And Decision to Leave is a film that it is a more basic love story of sorts, but it's through the eyes of Park. So you're getting some of the most unique cinematography of the whole year. It's one of the best looking films of the whole year. The acting is great. Park's use of classical music is always phenomenal. The little shots like inside the phone, behind the texts, were a lot of fun. Another one of my favorite endings of the year for sure. Park always, really, really thrills me with his camera work. I will watch anything that man does. I could watch him shoot fucking paint dry. I don't care. Oscar snubbed the shit out of it though. What are you doing? What are you doing? What the fuck? Why? Why did you do this? So, anyway, now everyone's kind of favorite movie of the year. Top Gun Maverick. It was good. Next movie, it was good. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I really could not give a fuck about the first one. I will be fully frank with you. I'll be Frank, Peter, and Steve with you all at once. I really could not give a fuck about the first Top Gun. It has, admittedly some cool plain stuff. And I don't think I don't sit there hating myself. I'm just usually bored, which I don't feel should be the case with a movie like that, like Top Gun, like all these muscle bros going out to the fucking, to the skies, gonna swirl around, but that's only for like 10 minutes, and it's cool when it happens, but the rest of the movie is just Tom Cruise, pretending, or maybe it's the filmmaker, I don't know, or all of them involved, I don't know, but it's hilariously another very gay but not gay movie, absolutely hilarious, and I didn't know this watching the film. Well, for one, again, I was having some personal stuff going on when I saw this one. Things looked a lot darker for some people I know in my life. So I was able to actually... I feel like the emotional potence of the movie would have worked, but I feel like it would have felt just a little smoltier if I didn't have something so dear happening to me at the moment, because then it was a lot easier for me to be susceptible to something that, I don't think it was generally cheesy how they handled the whole goose thing and everything. There were maybe a few moments, but ultimately the Top Gun Maverick did a good job of really not being too cheesy, not relying on being a comeback in the 80s, man. It felt like it was trying to be its own thing, and it felt like it knew what the best parts of the first one was, and it wanted to completely embellish those, which was the actual emotional weight, the consequences, the trials, the really fucking tense likely possibility that these guys can die up there. These people, actually, especially in Top Gun, Maverick, and especially Maverick, it ain't just the dudes. I mean, I was enthralled. I do kind of wish I knew beforehand that they were all flying. I knew Tommy Boy was really flying for most of those shots. I did not realize that all those actors were pretty much always in the air as well. Like, they weren't the ones doing the tricks usually, but if you see a shot of them in the cockpit, they're actually in one of those fucking jets just blasting through the air. I could feel that for a lot of the movie, but knowing for sure that it is the majority of the movie, I think would aid upon a rewatch for sure. Or any watch, really, because it does add like a real world intensity of like, oh my god. Yeah, it was fun. It definitely was fun. I could see why everyone is loving it so much. I can't quite say it's a favorite of the year, or for, like, my favorite when I say a favorite. I can't quite say it is my definitive favorite of the year. I have it right at the bottom of my list. But I wouldn't quite define it that way. It was a fun movie. If I saw it in theaters when it came out, I probably would have had even more fun. Even more fun. And so... Oh no, okay, I got a couple more before I get into all the horror films, so yeah, we still got some time. We still got some time. Fire of Love. Yeah, definitely my favorite doc of the year. I don't have any others on here. Yeah, Fire of Love is fucking awesome. Get to watch some people researching volcanoes. Volcanoes? What the fuck was that? Volcanoes. You get to see all this archival footage, get upscaled, all this incredible footage as well. It looks fucking phenomenal. Like, they make a point to say in the documentary, like, these researchers were so bashful, these French scientists who were studying volcanoes, and then they fell in love together because of their mutual love of volcanoes and the study of them. They they would be very modest and say, "Oh yeah, our footage, we're just researching, we're just filming." But then the people making the documentary make the point to say, "No, there's no way." The composition of these shots, like, it's not just someone throwing the camera into the air. These guys were making these people, this couple. They were making a film. They do kind of mention that one of them had a love for film, yeah, they were they clearly, even if they weren't sitting there like one day this will be edited into a movie, they were trying to display the beauty as it was. They were, like I said, they weren't just trying to throw their camera in the air. Oh, okay, we got the shot, let's go. And it wasn't even just like, we want to make sure we get everything in the shot. The framing is interesting. The moments they capture, the things that they make the subject of the frame, it is through the eye of someone with that mindset. And it has a very, very touching conclusion. I mean, it's a real story. I won't spoil it. Again, it's real life. You can't really spoil real life, but it's not a story that everyone knows. So it's on Disney Plus. Please check it out. Fire of Love. It was a really incredible film. Really, really touching. Fucking vibes were stellar. Soundtrack was awesome too, from what I remember. Had a cool rock soundtrack. Because a lot of the footage you were seeing is from like the 60s and the 70s, so it kind of fit into that era really well. I loved it. That's another Mikey thumbs up from me, baby. Okay, so now I won't lie, I'm in the wire a little bit. I'm running out of battery. I've been doing this for hours and hours. Oh, and where's my phone? I mean, I can do this. I can do it. Okay, so Bardo, right? Bardo and the whatever the fuck the full title is. I no disrespect to the movie though. It's a little weird. It's a bit indulgent, but you know, Inarritu always brings us the most stark visual style you'll probably ever see. You know, it's the guy behind Birdman. It's the guy behind The Revenant. It's the guy behind Omeros Poros, among other films. I mean, I thought it was fun. It to me was like a film version of like if your average daydreams and intrusive thoughts just made up a movie. That's kind of what Bardo was like. And again, the cinematography was fucking amazing. It was very much a self-insert film, like it was a film about Inarritu, kind of. And so, you know, you have scenes where it's like, oh, a critic shows up and he's like, you better shut up. And then the guy's still talking, but you can't hear him or something like that. You know, silly things like that. That, yeah, maybe feel a little, like, bitter. But I think the ride overall is a lot of fun. And again, one of the most real things you will probably ever friggin' see, man. I was just checking the battery. So yeah, again, like I said, I'm gonna kind of speed run it now a little bit, just because this has been going on a little long, and I mean it's late. I don't even mind these going on for too long. I would be fine if there are like 3-hour episodes of this at some point. I just need an extra battery or something. I'll probably have to purchase another one so that I can always keep one charging, so it doesn't take away a lot of time. So with that, I believe the only other film that I had to bring up that wasn't a horror film, because I do have a few others, was The Batman, which I did already mention a little bit. I mentioned that I felt like it was a little long, or at least there were moments where I remember particularly it was like a Catwoman scene towards the end where they were kind of just regurgitating some dialogue from The Dark Knight without like saying the exact same lines, but even a few times they still were, because it was that same thing of like, but you know, you can't kill people because it's bad. Like it was that same Batman speech, but it felt like the exact way The Dark Knight did it. And I see a lot of people comparing them. You know, a lot of people have recentitis, and a lot of people also just feel inclined when something is new to be like, actually, all those other versions of this thing that you thought were good, well, this new one's actually the best because it's new. Idiot. I think you're a bit not based on personal preference. Personal preference, it can be your favorite. I don't give a fuck. But in terms of like quality, it's one of the best Batman films. It's fucking beautiful looking. The tone I love, even though people may get tired of it by the end. Thought the soundtrack was great. As a big Bat Gadget fan, this is probably the film with the most of that. I love that the Batmobile actually was a Batmobile, not a Bat tank, and it just felt like a car that got roided up and Batmanified and teched up. So I liked that. Felt more akin to Adam West's Batmobile, which is still the best Batmobile, no fucking question. Even Christian Bale's, like, it would go to run it over, and then the Batmobile, like Adam West's, would just, like, shoot out, like, a ramp that would just send the fucking Bat tank into, like, the ocean or something. You know, the performances were great. I love Robert Pattinson as Bruce Cobain. His Kurt Cobain-induced Bruce Wayne, which is maybe not the Kurt Cobain side, but having a very depressive, edgy, at all times Bruce Wayne is much more accurate to the original Batman. I felt like people, even if it's okay to miss the Playboy aspect, but some people seem like they were mad that wasn't in the movie just because they wanted to see Batman fuck. It's like, I mean, you could just go on Pornhub, dude, like, or even the Adam West one, even though it's not openly, like, they're not saying, God damn, Batman, that's a nice cock you got there. Even though they're not saying shit like that, like they're all wearing tights and they all clearly were fucking off camera. Like, there's a very intense sexual energy in that show. You can, yeah, just go watch that if you don't want to watch Bat Dick or whatever porn Batman movies there are. The thousands that I know, I mean thousands, and that's probably an undershot. Undershot, there's a ejaculation joke in there somewhere. Anyway, I thought the Batman was fucking awesome. Maybe I'll talk about it more in like a Batman ranked or something. I don't know. Do I think it's better than The Dark Knight? Not really. I think it's about on level with Batman Begins. I think they both kind of have enough flaws, but are both bringing enough to the table that they kind of even out. I think The Batman does have maybe a slight edge over Batman Begins because the action is kind of messy. But it is a classic Batman movie, even if I don't think it's better than Mask of Phantasm or The Dark Knight or the Adam West Batman. It's right there with them. It would be the next one up. It would be immediately next. Oh, get that battery notice again. Oh no. So yeah, the Batman. I love the edginess of the movie. I love Paul Dano. I think he did great work as the Riddler. A few scenes were a little bit cheesy, but overall, I'm just glad that they used the Riddler. He was one that a lot of Batman fans were hoping that we could see a new version of. I'm not really the biggest fan of Batman Forever. I kind of would have preferred to see the original version, to have seen Robin Williams in that role, because it just feels like a Jim Carrey character. It doesn't really feel like the Riddler in that movie. I'm glad the Joker deleted scene was in fact a deleted scene. I felt like that was I dislike Jared Leto's Joker more. I probably wouldn't mind the Batman Joker as much if it didn't feel like a weird retread of Heath Ledger or Jared Leto and that guy who was on the Gotham show. It kind of felt like the three of them, which the actor, it's Barry something or other. He was in Banshees too, and he's fucking amazing in that film. He's in Killing of a Sacred Deer. He's in Dunkirk. I mean, I think he's a fucking goddamn fantastic actor. I wonder if he'll even be. Yeah, okay, Barry Keoghan. I probably said that wrong, and I do apologize. Oh, and he was in Green Knight too, which was also very good. From another year though, from 2020, I believe, or 2021. I personally, again, I love the edginess of it. I think it's a bit more true for tonally to Batman, and yeah, I will definitely revisit it. I'm excited for the Penguin. Colin Farrell fucking killing it this year. Or last year, I mean. And I hope part 2 is good. And now I will do a quick speed run of all the great horror films of the year, and then I will get the fuck out of here. Now, this has been fun. I just am worrying about the battery life and all this. So, Pearl, probably everyone's favorite horror film of the year, and I see why. I think it's a really fantastic film. I have to see it again. I watched it after I watched X, which I thought was good. Definitely didn't think it was as good as Pearl. I thought X had a neat style, and a kind of a fun twist on a fairly common slasher, but it didn't really feel like a 70s movie, whereas Pearl feels like a classic Hollywood film. It feels like the exact kind of film that it's trying to channel while bringing a deranged sort of notion to it all. And I can't wait to see Maxine, Mia Goth fucking destroying it this year. That is a Oscar snub right there, Mia Goth. You could have nominated her for X for playing 2 characters in that,
or you very much could have and should have nominated her for Pearl, because she's absolutely fantastic. Again, I have to see it again, but I loved it. I loved the feel so much. One of the films to ever. And then with that, I will bring up a film that seemed to be everyone's least favorite horror film of the year, and yet it ties into that kind of Demon Slayer's mid, like, either just saying a catchphrase or sort of blowing things off, just because there were various angles that this film was blown off from, and that is Men. Alex Garland's 2022 Men, easily his best looking film. I like it. I do think I like it more than his other films, honestly. More than Ex Machina and Annihilation. I feel like Ex Machina, I don't think either of them are bad. But with Men, like, people were comparing it to Mother, Darren Aronofsky's Mother, in a negative way, because these are films that approach messages, or should I say, approach real life things, either struggles or very treacherous groups of people and ideals. So in Mother, it's like evangelicals, and in Men, it is predatory men. And because it doesn't go far enough, like, because it just is showing you, it is visualizing you the hysterics of evangelicism, or just visualizing the fear women can hold in the presence of men. Because I guess that's it. Like, it's focusing on this while being surreal. So, showing things that if you're thinking of it overly literally, you may not get answers. But what you're seeing is not meant to be taken literally. It is all aiding this message, aiding these ideas, and it is just showing you these ideas in a very surreal fashion. So that turned people off, like, from all perspectives. Like, obviously there were plenty of men that I'm sure felt like attacked by men, and then but there were just as many women that were like, "Do better, Alex." And it's like, I mean, I think this is great. What do you mean? Like, yeah, sure. Could it have been a 4-hour video essay on the manosphere put into theaters? Yeah, it could have, but I mean, no one's fucking doing that, are they? Again, could it have gone deeper? Sure, but I don't think it does a bad job at showing what it's showing. I don't think it's bad to just display the fear women have, like, again, in the presence of men. Like, this is a real thing. This is a thing that women will express. But then plenty of women who openly discuss that online, women who are openly leftist online, and plenty of people are openly leftist online. We're just like, oh, this is his, like, male feminist, like, trying to get bitches movie, and it's like, Doc, he made one of the most visually stimulating movies of the year with some of the best practical effects I've ever seen in my life. I don't think he was just doing it to get bitches, I think he actually cared about making something good. And I think he did. It's another one of those films that, for me, is one of the most visually, really just cinematically enriching experiences of the year. And so with that, I will go into, let's see, let's speed run of these. How much time do I got left? Oh my god, it's gonna die. Oh my god, Studio 666, rest in peace, Taylor Hawkins. And it's another multimedia project. I think I'll make, not a full video for it, but the soundtrack is amazing. First 2 songs, last 2 songs are the best off it. Easy, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies was amazing, really fun, more fun than I expected. Hellraiser adaptation was great. It was extremely different, but it was true to the book in the few ways that the original movie was not. The viewing was the best thing out of Guillermo del Toro's horror anthology series by the director, Panos Cosmatos, I'm so sorry, of Mandy, Beyond the Black Rainbow. Really great, visually stunning. That director with Eric Andre, you can't miss it. And Barbarian, another film that just really evolved, grew in all these exciting ways, like Triangle of Sadness. I'm so glad I got to see it in an audience. so great watching all those reactions. And I think that's it. Thank you guys so much. I will go into these films more in the future, but I just wanted to get my thoughts out there. 2022 was a revival for film, baby. It was a revival. Do you understand me? Do you understand? And I'm so sweaty, too. I'm so sweaty. If you'd like me to get into some of these films that kind of sped past more, let me know specifically. But some of these maybe I will talk about a bit more. Like maybe I'll do a Hellraiser video. I don't know, but I gotta go. They're taking me out. They're taking me. No, please, no. Listen, okay, look. Bodies was a anti-pro Zoomer movie that I never knew I needed. Well, I did know I needed it. I just never knew when it was coming. I was waiting for someone to make a anti but pro Zoomer movie. Studio 666. Once again, I just gotta say, I love multimedia projects. I love the edginess of it. I love that it was going down the satanic kind of route, with the music, the screamo music. I'm glad the last thing that Taylor got to do with The Boys, at least, it's so sad the way he passed, genuinely, no memes, but I'm glad that the last big project they made together was just them being boys, just chasing each other, like running around, like spooking each other and making music. It's so awesome. And the actual musicianship was amazing. Some of the best practical effects in the year for some reason in Studio 666 out of nowhere. I don't know why, but it's in there. Barbarian. It's strangely, it's a little challenging for modern audiences, especially to have a character like Justin Long's character in there. And the way his whole plot even gets introduced is awesome. Again, I'm so glad I saw that in theaters. The new Hellraiser, yeah, I mean, it was great. The 13 Reasons Why people, they were, no, please, no, please. Please, just let me talk about a movie. No. Well, guys, I've been fatally wounded by the mafia, so now I do have to leave. I was trying to get any last thoughts in there, but now I'm blanking again. So maybe I will leave for real this time. Thanks, guys. Studio 666, yeah, it deserves more thoughts. It deserves a lot more. Directed by someone named BJ as well. That sounds like a fake name to me, but who knows, man? Who knows? I'll talk about it more. But if you want more on all these films, go to my letterbox, please. Please go on Letterboxd. Please. All of your money, I will pay you all back for the hours you have wasted with nothing. No substance, no meaning, nothing. You're all finished.